So I've said it in a few videos that I'm in the process of moving, which is why it's extra echoey. The lighting's all weird. There's a weird bright spot right there that I'm gonna probably cover over with some graphics as I talk about stuff. But so tomorrow's the day. I'm heading out of upstate South Carolina, head to Dallas, Texas. So I need to change up my videos a little bit. So I figured I'd do some more just my thoughts on some things rather than demonstrations on sample libraries, at least for the next week or two. So I figured I'd talk about Pond5, my thoughts on that. So let's check that out. Before we get started, if you like these kinds of videos, remember to do that whole like and subscribe thing. It really does help. So Pond5, for those of you that don't know, it's a place where you can upload music, video, sound effects, although I've heard they're not really taking sound effects. Right now, you might have better luck, but I've heard a lot of people in forums saying they've submitted packets of sound designed and sound effects, and they just haven't been accepted. What are they? Photographs, certain program presets, like I think Final Cut presets, things like that. So for our purposes here, I'll talk about the music part of it. I have put some photographs on there just to test it out. Never had any luck, not even nibbles. Photos are, I don't know, that's probably, it seems like one aspect of art that maybe even more people respect it even less than music, I guess. Maybe that's a little too harsh of a way to put it, but I have uploaded music on Pond5. I have about 37 tracks on there. I went back and forth with whether or not I should do it because the royalty rate is terrible, and it just got worse. It used to be, I think, closer to the 50-50 mark, which that's at least I could consider that passable. They have the market, you have the music, 50-50 split, fine. But now it's pretty atrocious. You get 35%, and the tracks aren't priced that high anyways, so you're making a few bucks per track, but I'll get back to that later. So the reason I jumped into Pond5 is because I had, and I'm sure a lot of you do too, just dozens and dozens of tracks just sitting on a hard drive. I'd already written them, they were sitting there, they were doing no good. The way I look at it is, if you have money and you put it in a checking account, fine, it sits there in the checking account, you can use it. But if you can get it into a savings account, then as long as it's sitting in there, it's gonna be producing some interest. And so I looked at Pond5 that way, rather than just having these dozens of tracks sitting on my hard drive. Why not throw them on Pond5? And there are competitors also I've looked at, but Pond5 seemed to be the easiest to get into, unlike some of the others that I haven't had as much luck with, even getting accepted onto them or having tracks approved. Tracks that got approved immediately onto Pond5, I think, I'm blanking on the names of them, but I've tried some of the others. But, so anyways, so I look at it that way. You have the tracks, why not put them somewhere where they can potentially make a little money, do something for you? You've already done the work, so why not let them work for you now, so to speak? Pond5 is non-exclusive, so you can upload tracks as long as you still have the rights to your music. You can upload them up there. You can upload them to other services to sell. You can distribute the tracks for other projects as long as you keep the rights. So that's a good thing. They're non-exclusive. And if you have a really cool track that's on Pond5 and all of a sudden you get somebody that wants to pay you for the track, or you get it placed in a movie where it's going to make more money, you can always pull it from Pond5. So that's also a good thing. So the payout is about 35%. The average track that I have up there, because I let Pond5 set the price, because it just, rather than trying to crunch the numbers myself. It's easier just to say let Pond5 set the price. They typically will set the tracks at $15, so you're making $5.25 per track. So yeah, that's pretty bad, but again, that's better than the $0 they're earning you just sitting on a hard drive. Oh, and speaking of payouts, they happen after your account hits $25. I think you can up that threshold if you happen to be really successful. You can up that if you're not wanting to get checks for $25. But 25 is the minimum. I just kept mine at 25. I've had some sales. I started putting stuff right at the end of last year, but I haven't even hit the threshold yet. So it's not going to make you a millionaire, that's for sure. It's better if you can get the tracks placed in film and TV or get gigs that pay you a typical composer or songwriter fee. But again, it's something. Those tracks were earning me nothing on my hard drive. Let's see. So how do you have some success on Pond5? Well, like a lot of online marketing and online sales type of businesses, it's a numbers game. You want as many tracks out there as you can get out there so that you have a lot of lines out in the pond, so to speak. Hey, it's Pond5. Good analogy. So the more lines you have out there, the more fish are gonna bite. And from what I've read and what I've tried to put into practice, experts that have been doing it longer have said that it's actually better to trickle your music in. Don't just do a massive music dump on there where you upload 35 tracks. Upload 1 or 2 a week. I believe the reason for that is it keeps your artist page or maybe your music tracks. I don't know exactly, but I think it keeps it up at the top of the new to Pond5 type of list. So your name appears higher up, or the track anyway appears higher up on the music pages as you put them on there. Although that being said, with putting stuff on there once or twice a week, when I first started, it seemed like it would take maybe a day, 2 days tops to get a track approved, and it does go through an approval rating. They seem pretty relaxed with it. As long as it meets certain criteria, which are clearly laid out when you upload them, then it's not a problem. But it used to take them maybe 48 hours to approve a track. Now it's taking 7 or 8 days. I'm not exactly sure if that has to do with the whole pandemic situation going on. So less people working, maybe they're not working from offices, so it's getting thrown into people's inboxes as they work from home. I don't know, but it seems like it has really slowed down. So doing that 1 or 2 a week thing is really tricky now when it takes 8 days for a track to get approved. Your mileage may vary though. I don't know. Maybe it's just the type of music I'm uploading. It's mostly orchestral music, although not completely. And that brings me to another point. Again, from what I've read, and actually from the little bit of experience I've had, it seems like ambient tracks and more atmospheric tracks seem to do the best rather than big epic orchestral film type of music. I'm not sure if that's true of rock music too. I've read in the forums that people have said they seem to have more success with the more atmospheric, just background stuff. I think a lot of people, rather than using these as placement in film and games, they might be using them in podcasts. So that's actually another market you might want to explore. If you know people that do a podcast, maybe you can get some tracks placed with them directly, make a few extra bucks, or maybe point them towards your Pond5. Another one, actually, since we're on it, is people that do Audible books, books on audio, that kind of thing, the Kindle, where they get read back to you, or maybe not Kindle, but where they get read back to you. Audible, I think, is one. I know a guy that does a lot of voiceover work, and he actually said that he uses Pond5 a lot to source out tracks for music. So that's another thought. If you know people that do voiceover stuff for books, you can point them toward your Pond5, or better yet, point them towards your website. Try to get a little bit more of the money yourself. Which brings me to another point. You could do a similar thing just on your website where people just buy it directly from you. And if you can get the following, which I'll be honest, is kind of in the back of my mind with this whole YouTube thing, build up an audience, even though most of my audience I think is probably music people, but try to do it so you can direct people to your music page that maybe are in the film, game, podcasting world. You build up an audience, and then maybe you can transition to, instead of having your track on Pond5 for $15 where you only make 5 1/4, you get the whole 15. The upside to Pond5 is they do the hosting, they do all the sales stuff, returns if they have returns, and they do the payouts. You still have to do your own taxes, so keep that in mind. But they handle that, plus they just have the people there. People know to go to Pond5, whereas they might not know to go to chrisbarmusic.com to get my tracks. So there's that. Plus, you have a lot of people just window shopping and browsing that might stumble across your stuff there rather than just happen to stumble across your website. So there's some thought to that. As far as some little tips and tricks I can give, again, I'm no expert at Pond5, but from what I've read, others have done that have been more successful, and these are people with 400 and 500 tracks on there, and they're making decent money. So if you can get the volume on there, again, you can make some of that quote-unquote passive income that so many people are talking about, and people are trying to, well, how do I get that? It's like, well, that's one way. If you're a musician, you write music, you've already done the work, throw it on Pond5, throw a ton of tracks on Pond5, and you can make at least a few $100 a month, which isn't that terrible for music that you've already written. So naming scheme. Rather than calling your tracks some big epic cool name, like I have a habit of naming my music tracks after board games, because board games have some cool titles, like Reavers of Midgard. That's a cool title. I didn't have to think of it. It's already created. I can name a track at that or some variation of that. So, but don't do that with Pond5. People won't know what Reavers of Midgard is. Is it a rock ballad? Is it orchestral? Is it some 8-bit, synthy pop music type thing? Who knows? So name your tracks what they are. Orchestral ambient track with choir, or 8-bit Nintendo style music. It's boring to name your tracks that, I get it, but when people are searching, you'll pop up easier, because people won't be searching for Champions of Midgard. They'll be searching for epic orchestral music with choir, perfect for a video game. They'll be searching that kind of thing. So remember that when you do your naming scheme. Use tags. I always click on the tags that they have at the bottom there, because I figured those are the ones that are getting searched the most, but you can always go and type some extra ones in if your tune has something unique about it that maybe isn't covered in that tag. Use those tags and be straightforward with the tags. If your tune isn't an ambient track, don't click the ambient tag, because you're just going to irritate people and they're going to move away from your page. So be honest with your tags. If you have to type some in yourself, do that. And again, I let Pond5 set my price. It's just easier. You can set your price if you want, but I figure I'm kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt of them knowing what tracks go for. So I go with that. And I figure if something ever really takes off and gets a lot of downloads, I can always bump the price up a little bit. I really think in the grand scheme of things, maybe you'd be out a couple of bucks. If a track is selling really well at $15, it maybe would have sold as many or maybe a few less at $20 or $23. But I think in the grand scheme of it, in the long run, you'd be out maybe $5. So not a big deal. And back to when you're uploading the tracks, use the description. Be thorough with it. Be descriptive with it, of course. And I can't remember if you probably don't need to put tags in there, but be descriptive. That's where you can maybe give your track its true title. So in the actual title bar, I would name it Epic Orchestral Track with Choir, and then down in the description, I could title it Reavers of Midgard. This epic orchestral track features choir, Nordic choir sounds and blah, give it a good description. Well, I think that's about it. I hope you found this useful. I wasn't sure if I should do a true review of Pond5. I'm still kind of new to it myself. I've only started just at the end of last year, like I said. I was going to show the analytics and the prices, but honestly, I'm at $21 right now. I have 37 tracks up there, so I haven't even received enough payout or enough money for a payout. But it's just my initial thoughts after 6-7 months in. Maybe I'll revisit this after a year's passed to see where I'm at, see how many tracks I've got up there by then. So yeah, hopefully if you were on the fence about Pond5, I say throw some tracks on there. Why not? Again, if they're on your hard drive, they're doing you no good. At least on Pond5, you might can make a few bucks off of it. You don't have to upload your best stuff. That's another thing. You might want to, again, because it's not exclusive and you can always pull tracks down if you can get them onto bigger and better things. But if you have at least decent tracks, get a ton of decent tracks on there. That's typically better than 4 or 5 really good tracks anyways, because it's a numbers game. So hopefully you found this useful, and we will see you on the next one.